Hey guys, what's going on? It's Alexander Williamson and welcome to FISHTORY. This is going to be a very different kind of episode from the normal episode. Usually on this show, we're talking about fish, we're talking about science, we're talking about history and biology, chemistry, whatever it may be. Tonight is the 5th anniversary of me getting struck by lightning. And it changed my life forever, changed my body forever. And I don't really go into depth talking about it that often. I'm okay with joking about it. Feel free to joke away. I've even named a strain of guppy endlers that I bred Voltas in honor of electricity and lightning, I suppose. But deep down, it has shaped every aspect of my life since it occurred. And I wanted to go over it with a bit of detail, and so that people who ask, tell me about getting struck by lightning. What's that like? That's crazy, that kind of thing. Well, let's talk about it. All right, so it was a night in 2018, the night from the 28th into the 29th of June. And in Seattle, lightning is very rare. It's not a common occurrence whatsoever. And it was a very clear night early on. And you could see the kind of purplish glow of the night around midnight. And I was out on a balcony on an exposed hillside that's about 300 feet in elevation. The top of the hill is about 400 feet in elevation or so, called Finney Ridge, in the Ballard and Fremont area of Seattle, across from Queen Anne Hill, which is the tallest hill. And in that neighborhood, the houses are packed in pretty tightly. We lived in a 3-story duplex townhouse style place. And we had the top floor of the building with a balcony. And I had set up my camera to take pictures of the city. We used to have this really lovely view of the Olympic Mountains and of the boats coming into Salmon Bay and the Ballard Locks. And so I set up a camera to take photos of this massive anvil-shaped cloud. And you could see the city light pollution on the cloud, and the rest of the sky had this eerie purple glow to it. And it was a warm night, kind of like tonight is, in June. And June is very temperamental in Seattle, especially at the end. It could be raining and 50, or it could be 90 and sunny. And this day, there had not been lightning yet. But I am somebody who photography, painting, whatever art form you can think of, I've dabbled in it, whether it's sculpting or photography or, anything. And I have actually traveled across the country taking pictures of lightning several times. First storm chasing trip was in 2010. And who would have thought that sitting in a city where we get maybe 2 or 3 lightning storms a year that are of more than 3 or 4 bolts, we had this massive storm roll in. Well, nothing had happened yet. There hadn't been a single bolt. And I set the camera up, and all of a sudden, on the 3rd floor of my building, we had these cherry trees, and they were at waist height against the railing, and we would trim them because they'd grow up every year, and we'd trim them back. Well, they were right around waist height and just below me. And all of a sudden, the air had this bizarre feeling to it. And what it was it was all my hair on my body in a t-shirt and on my face standing on end. And I didn't understand what was going on at that split second. This cloud was still far away. And later, I was able to track down with a news team that came to interview me. They heard my 911 call is what happened. 2 weeks after the fact, or a week or whatever it is, they released the 911 logs publicly. And they heard that there was a call for somebody that may have been struck by lightning, and that was how it went out. Was, you know, I think I've been struck by lightning, or my wife saying, I think my husband's been struck by lightning. We'll get there. So I'm on the balcony, and there is this faint, eerie purple glow, and all of this occurs within maybe a second, maybe 2 seconds. It felt like an eternity looking back on it, though. And I looked at the tree, and it was almost as though there was 2 or 3 different levels of it. Almost like when you have 3D glasses on and there's a red and a blue layer. Well, there was like a white and a purple and a bluish tinge that were all kind of offset and moving ghostly and coming up off the tree, headed up into the sky. And as soon as I saw that and felt all my hair stand up on end, I turned, and I was leaning over the railing. I'm not going to lie, I was smoking, and getting ready to set up a nice camera, a DSLR, and take pictures. Well, all of a sudden, everything goes white, and I hear this cartoon-sounding zzz, zzz. I mean, it sounded like something out of like a cartoon, like Dexter's Laboratory, or like an old Scooby-Doo or Frankenstein, you know, monster scene or something. And then the most surreal feeling of having no weight, and it felt like someone just grabbed me by the collar and pulled me back as hard as humanly possible. And I went through 2 French doors backwards. They opened out, and went through these doors and busted the center piece that like kind of holds the, like it's a flap that, well, that was latched down. Well, it broke, and my back hit the handle of the door. I came to, and everything was going whoom, whoom, and just high-pitched buzzing, and my vision was white. Everything in my field of view was white, and I thought I couldn't see. I didn't know where I was. I was feeling around all over, and my wife is yelling, "What the hell was that noise? What is going on?" Well, later when they confirmed the call logs, they also talked to UW, the reporters. And UW University has a good meteorology department, and when lightning strikes, there's a record of it. And they saw that the bolt traveled over 8 miles, and it was the first bolt of the storm to hit once it had come over the mountains, over the Olympic Mountains from the ocean. And it had traveled from out over the Puget Sound and Kitsap Peninsula area, right over there, all the way south and down, and it hit me first randomly, literally out of the blue, out of the purple. And within about 10 minutes, I was able to regather my wits to some degree. I was shaking, and I was just overcome with adrenaline, and I couldn't stand. So my wife got me onto the couch, called 911, obviously. Neighbors heard the commotion. They heard the huge boom and crack, which was instant to the flash, you know, according to the neighbor who was up, also just sitting in his house playing video games next door. And they said the whole building shook. And we had this 70s style house where it was sheet metal, used to be cedar, and they had changed it to look more modern, but it was sheet metal siding and flat sheet metal roofing. It used to be cedar shake, and they kind of made it look more industrial. Well, the railing was wood where I'd set up and was leaning on, and it had aluminum or, I don't know, some sort of cheap light metal as slats, and then wood, and then a screw in each thing. Well, when I came to later, I would find, and you'll see in the newscast footage earlier, the pictures they were showing is that the wood is all burnt. So the nails actually like carbonized. They turned black and sooty and like textured, and the wood got singed everywhere there was metal. So it must have diffused. It must not have just hit me. It must have hit and kind of scattered. But What it did was it entered, they think, through my face, through my hand, which I was leaning like this and I was smoking. And I turned and I was about like this probably when it hit. And it went right into my face, down into my body, hit my back or my spine most likely. And lightning doesn't like to travel through bone, and it can ricochet oddly, almost like a shaped path. And then it came out the back of both of my knees, and it blew out the skin on the back of both of my knees and like lacerated them and burned them. And the paramedics came. They came by like 1 in the morning or whatever time it was, and they gave me an EKG on the spot. They analyzed my vitals, my blood pressure. They I think they administered some Ativan because they thought I was having a panic attack at first. I was bleeding from the mouth, and they thought it was because I got scared of the lightning and I turned and maybe hit the door. And nobody had gone out to really look at the balcony. They were just concerned with me, and I looked okay other than the fact that I had all these busted teeth. And at the time we didn't realize it, but within a few hours we would realize my fillings had vaporized. My old mercury amalgam fillings, the metal ones, the silver ones, were all gone. The porcelain ones were cracked. And I had a number of fillings just because I'm a knucklehead and, you know, runs in the family too, or whatever, I guess, the dental health. But, you know, I brushed my teeth and everything, but I didn't have dental care for about 8 years of college that I went and kept up on. So when I finally did go, I had like, I don't know, 4 root canals and like 6 fillings or something awful. And that was the shape when I got struck. Well, it took out, I think, 9 teeth all at once, like cracked them to the core. And when they did x-rays later on, they found that the teeth had shattered like a hot dish being put into cold water. And the community on the channel was incredible. When I posted about it, I think in the community post first, and then word got around on Facebook what had happened. By the way, I didn't go to the hospital that night, which was odd, and it would come back to haunt me. They told me that it would be a 4 to 5 hour wait at the emergency room, and that I wasn't in critical or even serious condition, and that they would basically put a heart monitor on me, and I'd be waiting in the hospital room lobby, essentially. So they said, why don't you come back in the morning and just try to get in with the specialist if you're doing okay. It probably wasn't a direct hit. You probably just busted up your mouth. That was the medic's advice. Well, the medics didn't check me out very well, because within an hour of them leaving, my wife and I went down. She walked me downstairs, and I felt like I could walk. I knew I'd bruised my back. Didn't know how bad. And I had all sorts of numbness from the adrenaline, but also because I had bashed my spine, and I had fractured part of the spine that has... You kind of have these little wing tabs on your spine, and then you've got the part, if you're looking straight at your spine, you've got the tabs that stick out, but there's 3 dimensions that your spine works in, essentially. And 2 of the tabs had hairline fractures all over in them, and the discs had both slipped out, and I already had 2 herniated discs in my neck from previous injuries earlier in life. Well, it turns out after MRIs and things the next day that I had fractured, like I said, fractured my spine, and they couldn't tell the extent of the damage internally, but my teeth also, when they x-rayed them and looked at them, I went to a dentist 2 or 3 days later, they were shattered, a lot of them. Any tooth that had any damage before was shattered. A few that didn't had just chipped, so things like this are still fractured, and so pieces of them over the years have been breaking off, and these are all implants now, thankfully. Friends and YouTube people gathered around me, even though I was a small channel at the time, and I can't say how moving that was. For the first week or two, I felt okay. I felt beat up and bruised, but I felt okay. I didn't remember what had happened too much, other than just the white light and what I just told you. Well, by about 2 weeks into it, maybe 10 days into it, suddenly I began to confuse my words. And I would say to my wife, like, honey, can you bring me a glass of toothpaste? And I just get it wrong, and I get frustrated, and I try again, and I get it right. Well, it started getting worse and worse over about a week, until I was just kind of mumbling bizarre things. And we got into a neurologist, went to the urgent care right away. We tried to figure out what was going on, and eventually we found out from a specialist in Tampa, which there are lots of lightning strikes in Tampa and people who survive, not so many in the Seattle area, and the doctors just didn't know what to do with me, really. They knew I had burns on my legs. They knew my teeth needed to be worked on, so they sent me to a dentist. It turns out, too, that I perforated a hole from the roof of my mouth into my sinus. And that might have been from, like, the pressure change, or it may have been from the burn or the pathway. Nobody knows. But it also burned out the sinus here and up in here. And it basically cauterized everything that it burned, meaning that the nerves died in a lot of places. So I had like pressure and unease, but until I started having infection symptoms, and basically what happens, it's not very appealing, but your muscle turns into essentially a poisonous goo when the cells have died inside your body deeply, and it goes to your kidney and it can cause kidney failure. Well, I started not feeling well, and in my thigh and the back of my legs, and a spot in my stomach, another up here in my chest, 2 in my arms, they found pockets that had burned inside of me. So pathways that had not hollowed out, but areas where I had burns internally and minimal burns on the outside. And this is all coming out 2 weeks later, and part of this was weird because the news wanted to come interview me about a week after, I want to say, or something. And, I said okay to one news channel, and then my wife didn't want to do any more. News stuff after the way they edited it. And then they also put up there, after they came to my house, they said, local man claims to be hit by lightning. And they said they don't know if it was consistent with being hit by lightning. We talked to his doctors. We talked to the, with permission, obviously, for me. And we talked to the 911 dispatch. We talked to the UW radar and meteorology lab. But it didn't, it was odd in that the way they worded it, and you can see the piece if you Google my name and Seattle lightning strike. It's a poorly done piece. It's weird. They put a camera on a skateboard and they took pictures, printed them out, even though they were on my phone when I had the pictures. They could have just uploaded them in digital high resolution, and they scrolled by the pictures, and it was just odd. And I was starting to get into that phase where I was starting to kind of lose track of words and things. Well, by the worst of it, I couldn't write with my right hand. My whole life had been art. I did art shows, gallery shows. I had a gallery in Greenwood in Seattle. I was making a living off of art, and also working at Trader Joe's as a chalkboard artist, and also doing tattoos and doing murals on buildings and anything, logos for clients here and there. And it had just become my life after graduating, because the anthropology and archaeology stuff, unless I was going to teach, it was not going to pay the bills, and there weren't that many positions for it for years and years. And then I got into art, and it just paid better. And so I really didn't know what I was going to do with my life at that point. I had a total existential meltdown. I didn't feel like I was myself anymore. I didn't find pleasure in the things that I used to find pleasure in, like painting. And I went through occupational therapy for 5 months, I believe. And one day they called the doctors, which was, I had all these specialists, endocrinologists, because I also have lupus, which doesn't help make anything less complicated, but I have lupus and autoimmune issues, and then I also had this going on, and my wife and I had also been hoping to have a kid during this time, right before this. We'd just gotten married a year and a half earlier, and it turns out that I lost the ability to have kids during this, from one of the injuries. Now there's other options, and we could adopt or something like that, but it changed what I was thinking I would do with my life, big time. And then on top of that, as a little YouTube channel, then there were people that were questioning what had happened, and my medical bills are piling up, and incredible friends and family did a GoFundMe, and I felt really awkward about it and really tried to resist it, but my medical bills were over $10,000 at that point. And in the news story, it's very odd because they said, if you want to help his GoFundMe, his dental bills may be $5,000. They just made that number up. In the end of the same clip, I say it's $20,000 to $30,000 for the work they need to do. Well, that's the work I had done several years ago, getting bridges and implants and things worked out small scale. It all failed. All the teeth that were real, that were left, have failed. I have a few crowns. You can see how bad off my teeth are, and I'm ashamed of it. Even though I didn't have control over it per se, it's going on 5 years, and I've spent 30 grand on the teeth, and then we spent $15,000, which is a half price bargain, believe it or not. That's why I was in Florida so much this year, was to get these implants put in. So I have 10 implants now, all across the bottom, and hopefully they don't reject. I had to do bone grafts and things too. What I was going to say though was my ability to write with my right hand came back when I got a phone call from the doctor, and I literally just took a pen without thinking and wrote down a phone number, and I did it with my right hand after we'd been trying to relearn to write with my left hand. We had my motor skills were so bad on the right side that they just decided, with your hand, it's too shaky, you just try with your left, because my left was okay. Life continued. After a little while, it was incredibly kind. The $7 grand that people raised for the GoFundMe was incredible. I felt ashamed to accept it. I felt honored and humbled. But, then we still had bills and bills on top of that, and I couldn't work. So I started thinking, well, what can I do? And YouTube really started to make more sense, because I thought, you know what? I'm sitting in this room because I had to rest so much afterwards too. Plus, when you have that much tissue damage, you just have to drink fluids and go in and get IV fluids from time to time, and medication for your kidney and liver, and all sorts of stuff. But you have to stay really hydrated and rest. And same with your brain. When you have a bad brain injury, I had bleeding on the front of my brain and on the back of my brain from probably the initial hit, and then maybe a whiplash, or just kind of the shock back and forth of hitting a door so hard, or the lightning hitting me so hard. They still don't know. I still don't know. And whether it was a direct hit or it hit the house and then just kind of part of it hit me, who knows? And I guess it doesn't matter. But what's odd is ever since then I have this draw, this pull to lightning. When I've seen it in Florida, when I've seen it here in the distance, it feels like a person, and it feels like someone I know. It feels like somebody, like a mother or a relative, that I'm close with, that I have some sort of bond with. Very weird. But that I'm definitely fearful of. The noise and everything is something that makes my heart race a little. But it's something that I'm so curious and drawn to. Well, I made some videos of how lightning creates nitrates and nitrites, and how it's one of the few things that can fix nitrogen, and you know, how the dust storms in the Sahara create friction and rainfall over the Amazon. And you guys can go back and watch my videos on lightning and the processes that involve fish. I started getting kind of obsessed with these system overviews, and like, how could this random thing have anything to do with this other random thing? And I know there's a connection. I can feel it in my soul, and I can't articulate it. So I started looking through books and doing research. And that basically, you know, we come up through today, and here we are. My wife has been incredible. She puts up with me, and you know, I've got issues with medications and things that I had to be on anti-seizure medication. Now, I have a history, which you guys may know too, of substance use, especially drinking and downers. And I'll leave it at that for this video. But I quit drinking 15 years ago, also right about this time. And I think I've had I had a sip of champagne at our wedding, and I've had 2 other nights where I've drank since then in 15 years. Other than that, nothing of alcohol. And, or herb, really. Sorry. Light. Aziz Light. But all these changes were very hard, and trying to decide, should I take medication from the doctor? Should I not? Should I take steroids? Should I not? Is it too hard on my liver? Is it, you know, and you have to consult all these different specialists, pay a different copay for each thing, go and get different things, you know, biologics for lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis, any of these different autoimmune diseases. The injections and things oftentimes are $1,000 to $3,000 per injection for newer medications. And that's like on the cheaper side of things. Research stuff's even more expensive. And so a few times I got signed up for trials and was able to get 1 or 2. And then they'd say, and now you got to pay for the rest, and insurance doesn't cover. Or insurance covers $1,000, but it's still going to be $3,000 out of pocket. So I've been basically treating all of these things with methotrexate and prednisone and hydrazine and prescription Benadryl, essentially, and a number of gabapentin, and for a while different anti seizure medications as well. And sometimes they don't mix so well, and lately during live streams I've been feeling it again, that things aren't quite right in my body. And I can rest and take it easy and all that, but that it's just not in my nature to want to do that. And you know, I used to feel like I had to draw, I have to do art, I have to get it out on paper, and that's me, that's my expression. And you can go to somainc.com, or you can go to Alexander J. Williamson at Instagram, and you can go see my art. That was me, that was my identity. Art, I'm an artist. And ever since then, it's not so much. I don't feel like I'm channeling this otherly feeling or release anymore. I get that from being in nature now and just listening. Now the birds are chirping, it's 4 something in the morning, and my aquariums allow me, with a lot of my physical limitations. I've had 2 spine surgeries now, lots of injections. I've had so many oral surgeries and dentist appointments, over 30,000. Like I said, I think it was 32,800 is what we came up with before the implants. And then the implants were 15,000 for the lower, which is a bargain. Incredible dentist that I've been working with down in Florida, friend of a friend kind of thing. And the tops are going to be another 15,000. But I can't tell you how much it has stifled travel and the channel growing, and oh, I need a new laptop, oh, I need this, I need that. But it has made me a better person, I think. And I think it has made me more cognizant of the plight that so many of you have shared with me, whether it's substances, whether it's chronic pain, whether it's injury, whether it's caring for family members that are going through that, whether it's losing a kid or, a miscarriage type thing. We went through that too before all of this. And the amount of growing and living that I did in the last 5 years feels like 20 years. And I went through that earlier in life too, when I lost a lot of people who were close to me in my late teens. My mother had an aneurysm and was on life support for months. Had to learn to learn to reuse her hands and talk, and the same thing I kind of went through on a smaller scale. And it was all like deja vu. It was very traumatic again, honestly. But the aquariums were a constant. Even though I liked aquariums before and they were soothing, I didn't feel that they were an art form. I didn't feel that they were an extension of myself or an extension of my understanding of the natural world. And now I feel as though you are this clockmaker and you're putting the gears in place. And when you understand how they move, you can make these elaborate arrangements and you can set them into motion and then step back. And you maybe need to wind them once in a while, like a good pocket watch. But if you work really hard, you can even make it wind itself with gravity, with just movement. And this is a metaphor, but I see a lot of parallels in feeling that way about you would consider yourself an artisan if you made incredible, detailed, beautiful watches or clocks, right? You'd be an artisan. And I see a lot of parallels in understanding and setting up and mastering the interactions, understanding what's going on in breeding fish and propagating plants and growing out an aquascape and just watching nature and knowing how it's going to play out, and then the little surprises that change. But I wanted to put all this in a video reflecting on that time, because now enough time has passed, and obviously I'm not asking for anything. I don't want any pity or anything like that. I'm doing great. And you guys have come to the channel and are here for other reasons. It's not because you heard about this, probably, anyways. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for letting me just get back to being a person. And, of course, thank you for those of you who were here and are still here that have helped me along the way in so many different ways, emotionally, financially. The GoFundMe is still so awkward. In our culture, it's just a weird experience. And man, we need a different medical system. That's for sure. That's when GoFundMe is your health plan for catastrophes. Yeah. And that was the thing, was a lot of the teeth stuff was considered cosmetic. They'd pay for all my teeth to be pulled and dentures, but they wouldn't cover anything else. That's why I ended up having to spend so much, was I didn't want to lose them all. I thought maybe we could save them, and so did the dentists. But it was too much damage, too much breaking all the way up into the tooth, into the root, and then it was really hard to pull the teeth. And now I've only got, I think, 6 teeth that are my teeth left. The rest are all crowns and fake caps and bridges and things. And now, hopefully in the next 6 months, you guys will witness when I get to replace the last of these top ones. I don't have any top molars. And they're literally crumbling. And people think, they look at you weird, and they think things of you. And add in being sick or having a medication that's reacting wrong, and insomnia and all these other neurological things. And having a past of substance use. Even though I quit it and there was never any intervention or never went away to any place. Not that that's good or bad. I mean, everybody's journey is their own. But my point being is, I was never like my life was falling apart. visibly on the outside or even that much to me. It was just that I was doing things and I just decided I need to stop because I need to grow up. I need to take care of myself if I'm going to be here in the future for a family and for kids and for my family and friends. And then I had to reanalyze that again too and decide, do you stay the course? So I'm so sorry, guys. You can tell I'm just in my yard right now just talking, but I just wanted to get this out. I don't know if anybody cares about this, but I wanted to share it with you and let you guys know what's been going on in the background for the last 5 years. Obviously you've heard bits and pieces, but that's where we're at right now. And finally I feel like we've turned the corner. Once I get the teeth finished and that paid off, I feel like I'll have my life back to focus on the things I want to. Everyone's got something they're dealing with though. So thanks for listening, I guess. But also, this is the video I'm going to direct people to if they want the story, so to speak. So that's the story. And I'm sticking to it. I don't know. All right, guys. Well, have a good one. We'll get back to the fish content tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Love those around you. Your critters, family, your friends. And of course, yeah, take care of yourselves. Because you can't take care of those other things without you healthy and doing well. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping give me my life back by being something to motivate me to work towards and to inspire others, hopefully. That's why I get up in the morning now. And I didn't know why I was for a long time after the injuries. So thank you. Life's good. I'll see you guys tomorrow.